Dr. Kathy Ferguson, you've been speaking tonight at our Do Something series around concerns about organ harvesting in China. Could you briefly outline what those concerns are, please?
Two concerns, really. One is the acknowledged use of organs from condemned criminals who are executed ostensibly having given their consent, but an argument that if you are going to be killed for a crime, can you really give proper consent towards giving your organs? And the other less substantiated issue is that of using organs from political prisoners, particularly those of the Falun Gong movement, whom it is alleged are kept in labour camps until their organs are needed.
You've talked about transplant tourism. What exactly is that?
That is a practice whereby a wealthy individual from another country travels to a country such as China and pays for an organ transplant almost on demand.
What's the waiting time at the moment? You were talking about different waiting times in the West compared to China and per capita rates of transplanting.
The wait for a kidney transplant, which is from a live donor in the US, is said to be about 7 years, whereas in China it may only be 3 to 4 weeks. The other, in terms of numbers, in the US they do about 27,000 transplants a year. 25,000 of those are kidney transplants. The exact rate in China is not known, but it is said to be the second highest in the world after the US. And certainly in 2003, there were 3,000 liver transplants performed in China, which is the highest rate in the world.
And presumably the argument is that this is being fed by the ready source of organs from prisoners.
Yes, it's the Chinese government acknowledges now that 2/3 of organ donations come from executed criminals, although their rate of people signing up for donation is a lot lower, and so it is probably a lot higher than that.
You said in your presentation that official government policy has shifted in recent years. What is that shift, and what do you think's driving it?
The original government policy was that organs from condemned prisoners could be used for transplantation. The shift now has been, 2 years ago, that organs should really only go to family members of condemned prisoners, and then or otherwise to Chinese people only. They are now acknowledging that while organ transplants do occur still from prisoners, that this is a less than acceptable practice, and they are trying to encourage a donation scheme in the country, although there's only 10 pilot locations in China so far.
You mentioned protests by Canadian-based surgeons, and the Australasian College of Surgeons has looked at this issue as well as have other surgeons around the world. Has this protest coming from this sort of source been any influence on the process at all of the shift in government policy?
It's hard to know for sure. The Canadian article that has received some publicity is actually from 2 Canadian lawyers, not surgeons, and the Chinese government certainly refutes the allegations of the use of political prisoners for organ transplantation, but I think it has raised the profile of the issue. The Transplant Society has also come out against the use of organs from political prisoners and any prisoners, and is putting pressure on transplant surgeons in China in terms of not accepting articles for publication that might have involved use of executed prisoners, and not wanting them to become members of their society unless they agreed to be bound by the ethical principles of the Transplant Society.
So in broad terms, the approach of surgeons has been one of protest as well as engagement.
Yes, it's felt that we can't, while the Canadian authors do recommend a fairly blanket approach to withdraw from engagement with China. I think most other that's their personal viewpoint. I think the viewpoint of surgeons generally has been to try and engage with Chinese surgeons to get them to realise that what they're doing is considered unacceptable by the rest of the world.
Thank you very much.